Alrighty, we're going to move on to our next panel discussion, which promises to be a real game changer for anyone who wants to make waves in the retail world. The topic is selling in style, learning how to make your brand stand out from promising players in retail. So our panelists include can I please call on stage Ronnie Sabnani, Chief Inception Officer at convene Incorporated, Greg Williams, the Master Negotiator and Body Language Expert at the Master Negotiator, Anand Sankar Narayanan, Co-Founder and Brand Strategist at TMA Global, and our moderator, James Giaprakis, Co-Founder and CEO at Kalos Wellness. A round of applause for the panel.
Thank you, Ashpreet. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Great to see you all back here again. How are we doing this morning? All set for another very exciting discussion, I believe, gentlemen, that we're going to have here on stage. Yeah?
Looking forward to it.
So, selling in style. I'm always very curious about that particular term. What does style mean? And more specifically, what does retail mean? But before we get into the meat of it, I'd like each of you gentlemen to just tell us a bit about your background and tell the audience why you're here and what we expect to hear from you with regard to this topic. So Anand, perhaps I can start with you.
Thank you. Morning everyone. Hope the energy is high on the room. My name is Anand Shankar Narayanan. I'm a brand strategist. I work with businesses to transform them to become beloved brands in the category, because brands and businesses are two sides of the same coin. When you're going into B2C segment, when you're going into retail, you need to understand the consumer sentiments. So for that, you need a layer of branding, a bit of an emotion that is layered to your brand to build the connectivity to the audience. So I bring in that perspective to this topic of how do you leverage your brand to sell in style in retail.
Thank you, Anand. Great stuff. Greg, tell us a bit
Where
more
are
about
our
you.
banners to show how great we are? Where are those? No, I'm only joking. I'm Greg Williams, the Master Negotiator and Body Language Expert. I'm going to speak about positioning your brand today from a negotiation and reading body language aspect. My background is, as you might imagine, in negotiations and reading body language. I've written 7 books on that topic, on those topics I should say. I've also served as a body language consultant on one of the reality shows that was a hit in the United States, Love and Hip Hop in New York. My passion is in empowering people to obtain better outcomes through the negotiation process. And I'm going to do something to entice you to show how you can position your brand as we continue.
James.
Yes, hello, my name is James Giaprakis. I'm the co-founder of Kalos Wellness and CEO. Kalos is a holistic wellness company. We offer products and experiences through retail and through online application. Also, I was a co-founder of Dream Gifted, a beverage company in the United States. So we're building CPG products, consumer products. And also, I'm the co-founder of Wenger Industries, which is a transportation company based in Dallas, Texas. So I can't wait to give my insights and how to build a brand, and we can discuss the whole journey that you need to, and the steps you need to take to build a successful brand.
Thank you, James. And hi, again, good morning, everyone. My name is Ronnie Sabnani. I'm the Chief Inception Officer at convene Incorporated. The topic that you see up here is very close to what we do at heart in the organization. One of our key focus is really about helping organizations become better versions of themselves, and that's through optimizing how they perform in sales. The other aspect around our industries that we focus in, retail is also one of the key industries that we get quite involved in, and that's why this topic really drew me as when it first came out. Now, we might be able to get Greg to talk a bit more or show a bit of hip-hop skills later on, right, given that he did that stint in that love and hip-hop. But first off, I'd like us to just explore the word retail, gentlemen. Now, for many of us over here, retail, the general definition is things that you buy at a store. Typically, a clothing item, a sundry item, or perhaps sporting goods. I'd like us to think a bit more about retail beyond that. If you really think about retail, it encompasses not just goods, but also services, as we all know. From your hair salons, to your wellness centers, to your sporting venues where people go in and play paddleball. Alex, very curious to hear about that a bit more as well. But every single aspect of it has got to do with retail, even to the point of banking, right? You have retail banking. Now, regardless of which form of retail it is, Anand, from your perspective, what do you feel is important as a brand strategist that retailers have to think about in terms of positioning themselves and how they can stand out, especially if there are new entrants into the market?
Exactly. I love the question that you've posed and trying to connect it from each of our perspectives here. So once you define what your brand is at a top level, I truly believe retail is that space when the customer experiences the moment of truth. That you would have said something through your marketing campaigns, that what you stand for, what you expect from the brand and all of that. But at the store level, when somebody walked in, right, if there is a dissonance between what you're offering on ground and what you said on air, there's a big problem. There's a disconnect. You've already disappointed the consumer at the first touch point. And this is a crucial and last mile touch point. This is where I truly believe customer interacts with the brand. The two-way interaction happens at the retail store level. At the communication level, at an ATL level, it's only one way. This is who I am, expect this from me, whatever that is. But retail needs to deliver that experience that the brand says. That's why I believe that that's what happens in the store. That's why it's quite important. That's my take on it.
So as a brand strategist, how do you feel a retailer should be thinking about positioning their brand? One aspect of positioning is crucial.
Okay. So why positioning is very crucial? Let's go a few steps back before we get into sales and retail. Right? Like I said, brands and businesses are two sides of the same coin. They're not different. They're exactly the same. Positioning is helping you identify a competitive advantage and trying to identify a segment of your audience that you can appeal to. Right? This is where the difference comes between business and brand building initiatives, and why brand tries to identify something that is good for the business. In general, anybody who owns a product or a brand or service or anything, there's a general notion that the entire country is my market, everybody is my customer, right? If, like say for example, if you're selling an apparel brand, everybody can buy my shirt or trousers or shoes or watch or anything, right? But it's not. Right? That's why segmentation kicks in. First level that happens was demographics. Like between age group and price points, what is the segment that you can target? The second comes psychographics. What is the mindset of the audience or the motivation of the audience that you can cater to? Right? That's where you start positioning yourself uniquely. Right? Take Apple for example. It is not meant to be for everybody in the world. They are very clear from day one. Right? I'm here to help. Sorry about it. I'm here to help people be their creative self by the use of technology. I want to use technology to improve the lives of people and explore their creativity in their day-to-day activities. Because back then, using a computer device or phone is extremely difficult. Right? So they segmented the audience and they positioned it for a unique segment of people. IBM was there. They were going behind, they were like leaders in computer space at that time. Microsoft was there. Apple was also there. Apple clearly defined whom they want to go behind. And then they tied that experience to the retail store. So everything starts with positioning and how do you deliver that positioning or promise at the retail store level. You know, all of us have experienced buying an Apple product from an Apple retail store.
And you know what, I'd like to pick up on that perspective about positioning.
Yep.
Because I spoke about the fact that I've written 7 books, and the last two, Negotiating with a Bully and Body Language Secrets to Win More Negotiations. Now, from a positioning perspective, who'd like to have this book? Okay, I saw several hands go up. I'll let you decide later on. But what did I just do? I positioned with my expertise, first of all. Then I had you identify who were my potential customers. That's one thing that all entrepreneurs should be doing, be it whatever level they happen to be in the supply chain and or retail, wholesale, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I speak about control from that perspective also. You control your brand, and thus you project the image from which you wish to have your brand perceived. And you have to first identify those that will be in your marketplace in order to know what they want, where they want it, how they want it, when they want it, and where they go to get it, such that you position yourself and therefore be able to offer them what they need in the format that they choose to actually consume it.
That's 100%. As an entrepreneur, you have to know exactly what is your consumer is. You have to position your products exactly, tailor everything according to that segment you want to serve. That's 100%. Another thing you should do, and especially in CPG, what we learn, is that you don't go after mass markets. So this is a huge thing. You have to have a completely different product and offer a completely different service from any other competitor on the market. Let's say on the sales space, you cannot, you cannot create another energy drink which, let's say, tastes better or is better than Red Bull, because Red Bull is not an energy drink, it's a media company. So it's very important to build a product, and your product has this unique market to fit application that is going to give you leverage. Because if you're going to compete in the mass market, it's very expensive and probably is not going to be successful. So branding is so important. Sales strategies and any other strategies you can implement after, but branding, how your product is going to look and you're going to give it to the world, that's so important. That's why all our products we build has a unique brand. So on the sales perspective, I don't know if you want to add something.
No, I think it's a very, very relevant point, Greg and James. The fact that we have to start with the brand. And I want to draw on both what the two of you said as well in terms of positioning. The term, again, branding and positioning can be used in a variety of ways, but in my opinion, positioning is all about what each and every one of us does every single day. How we stand, how we project our personality to the next person. Think about the retail experience as well, or think about when we're launching a brand. How do we want to be perceived? And a lot of times, perception is literally 90% of that first impression that really matters a lot, right? As we know, yeah? So that immediate reaction is the perception of how we are setting up our position, yeah? But once that's done, how do we ensure that we continue to draw in the customers, draw in the consumers, whether it's online or whether it's at the store? The key element, again, is around quite a lot of what we talked about yesterday, what we were also talking about today, is that experience. And when we think about experience, I have a bit of an issue in terms of this title, selling in style, because you're not really selling until you are actually coming from a customer's perspective. So we need to think a bit more about the customer buying experience as opposed to our brand selling experience. And how we're positioning the brand is going to be very much dependent on how we are offering a holistic buying experience to the customer. Yeah?
I'd like to
what do you think about that?
Yes, I'd like to take on the perception that you said, right? Human beings, we have an attention span of like what, less than 8 or 9 seconds now? We've become like worse than goldfish, right, in that point.
Sorry, what did you say?
I love that. Yeah. So how do you create that perception in that such a short time is extremely critical. That's why you got to be extremely clear on what you stand for and why you stand for, why you do what you do. Right? On the perception part, I'd like to take one example that I would like to take the audience through. On the retail store brand, right? We all know Tesco, right? The retail brand from the UK. It's a 100-year-old brand, right? And they were like have 4,000 stores around the country. they ran into a big problem like a decade and a half ago. What they did was, consumers, the customers at the retail store, started feeling that the quality of Tesco food has dropped drastically. Right? That is how everybody started perceiving the brand. When Tesco did a blind taste test, you know, it means like you don't reveal the brand, where is the source of the brand, and it's just being served to a group of audience in a closed group and ask them to rate the experience of the food and the taste of the food. Everybody rated 10 out of 10 on all the parameters. Oh, the quality of the ingredients is amazing, the food is tasty, it's fresh and all of that. Then Tesco went back to the drawing room and realized that there's no actual problem at the store or at the product, but it's a perceived problem by the consumers. Right? When they tried understanding why this perception came about in the first place, they said like any other retail store, unfortunately, they got into an infinite loop of discounts and discounts and discounts, everyday low prices, buy 3, get 1 free, like next 1 hour this offer is valid and all of that. For consumers, imagine if you're walking into the store, every single time you're only experiencing discounts. Okay, this is a discount, this is a free. You automatically start associating discounts with cheap product or cheap price, unfortunately. Right? It's a perceived problem. That's why semantics also matters a lot, like free versus complimentary. There's a huge difference in the way people perceive. Right? So what Tesco did was, unfortunately, they pegged everything on the brand and sales around pricing. They got to change it. So they switched to consumer-centric by understanding what consumers wanted. Right? They did a research and found out a very interesting insight, right? Very fundamental human insight on why people buy food and why people cook food. Right? They found that people love to cook for people who love. Right? We all love to cook for people who love. Right? We love to cook for our family members. We love to cook for people when there are guests coming home, when your relatives are coming home, when your friends are coming home. So they hinged on this insight and they switched the entire narrative and Tesco's positioning, and they launched a brand campaign called Food Love Stories. Right? I would request nice people at the backstage to play a small video, like a 30-second or 1-minute video, that I want all of us to see to understand the impact of this particular initiative by changing the positioning. Folks, can you please play that?
So food love stories.
Food Love Stories.
Just in Tesco, picking up on the way home. My grandson's not well. I've got to go and get him from school. There's only one thing that makes him feel better. Not onions. He doesn't like those. Or carrots. And he doesn't much like peppers. But he absolutely loves Nana's magic soup. Thanks, Nana.
Food Love Stories, brought to you by Tesco.
I've never been good at saying sorry. I had a massive row with my stepmom. Said some things I didn't really mean. I wasn't very nice. I'm making my cupcakes. Had the caramel and flakes of chocolate.
Food Love Stories, brought to you by Tesco.
It's difficult for me to explain this beautiful emotion that they captured, so I would like to play this. So what this whole campaign did for the brand was, the perception completely shifted from price to love and human emotions. Right? And this campaign drove 700 million pounds of incremental revenue for Tesco in 6 months. It has a complete turnaround story for the brand just by switching the narrative from price-driven approach at retail store to love and why people buy. So that's the impact of positioning and why we have to be keeping consumers in mind and what you got to offer.
Can I add something?
Please.
So obviously Tesco is a huge corporation, and when you have a startup or you have a business that you run like with not the funds that Tesco has, you have to be more precise and more narrow on your approach, which means you have to understand that your perception of the brand, like from the beginning, is very important, because then it's going to be very expensive for you to change that perspective. Probably the brand is not going to make it.
I'm with you,
Yeah.
James, because it's even more important for smaller brands to be extremely clear from day one, because you can't go ATL and do a mass media campaign. At every touch point, how can you deliver this experience?
And you know what, one of the things I want to do is to bring this back to the customer experience, because a lot of times your brand positioning can be influenced, affected by the fact that the customer doesn't have the experience that he or she is actually seeking. Who in this room would agree that Mercedes is a recognized brand worldwide? Okay, everybody should raise their hands. And the point that I'm making is they have positioned themselves such that people will come to expect excellence in the cars that they produce. Now, they don't sell to a very low level, let's say financial type of individual. Why? Because that's part of their positioning. So there's a certain status that's also attached to the brand of Mercedes. What brand status are you attaching to your product, your service, your offering? That's something that one must always consider in order to influence more people in your particular niche or marketplace, and to make sure that you have a higher probability of reaching success.
I think what each of you said at all points, whether it's an established organization like Tesco or a startup, however you're positioning it, you're talking about brand status, it's all aimed at eliciting one single factor or component from every individual, and that is the emotion. How do you elicit the right sort of emotion from your consumer, from your target market, in order for them to want that particular product or that particular service? And emotion, as we heard from Danny early on in his keynote, it's a very powerful aspect of every single individual. Using that, harnessing that in a way that allows us to then expand into a holistic customer experience. Again, regardless of whether it's online or in store, that's going to be a key aspect or key strategy for any retailer to be able to stand out. I often say this, the fact that when you're talking about customer experience, it has to evoke all the senses. Not just the fact that, oh, I've got a great experience at the store, but it has to evoke all senses, including your olfactory senses. Every time now I walk into a Shanghai Tang store, I'm already expecting a certain sort of fragrance to permeate the store. Every time I walk into a fast-moving consumer goods store, like a Uniqlo or whatever it is, I'm expected to be greeted by a sales associate in a certain way. It's because there is this aspect of emotions by which my brain is associated and experienced with that can be a powerful way for retailers to be able to establish and to stand out from the other players.
I would say that when you're positioning your brand, it's better to position your brand to have this wow experience, like all the times. This wow experience is going to make you different from any competition, and that starts from online and then transitioning to retail. I see we all consume incredible amount of information every day. It's very rare that I go to a store and I don't know what I'm going to buy. So I heard yesterday that people comparing prices. I believe that this is not the space you want to be. You don't have to go to this space that you are based on price. You are based on service and product, and that's going to make you loyal customers. And I believe this wow moment is that it's going to make you grow and expand to different products if you want later that you can actually sell the mass market.
James, can you give an example of how one can actually create an experience for customer service and or whatever the ambiance is that you need to create in order to attract more customers?
Absolutely. So we learned with Carlos that, you having like just beverages and have like just dishes or whatever doesn't mean anything. It means nothing right now in CBD space or wellness or whatever to have just products. So you just start to creating the online experience, which is we're creating an application, for example, and we're giving daily wellness goals and daily wellness tips. So we actually provide a service first to our consumers, and then providing that service, then we supply them the products as well. So this is the approach, that you have to be first service to these people and then attach your products according to your service that you're giving. So if someone comes to you and say, okay, I want to eat healthy, so okay, maybe you have the products, but you have to convince them that you know their actual problem. So, and that's the most important thing, people to trust you that you can serve their problems.
Absolutely. Solving their problems. We expand on that, and going back to this emotional aspect. What do we think, ladies and gentlemen? What percentage of our decisions are based on emotions? Anyone have an idea? 90%? I hear 80, I hear 70. 100% of our decisions are based on emotions. But here's the interesting thing about consumer buying behavior. 100% of our decisions, buying decisions, are based on emotions, but when we make that purchase, we then justify it with logic. How many of us actually need the latest iPhone or the latest gadget? iPhone 12 does as much of the same tricks as iPhone 15, right, Simon? Right? But we buy it because of that. Many of us, love flashy sports cars and all that. How many of us actually need it? How many of us live in cities where we can really drive it? I live in Singapore, and the number of sports cars and supercars you see on the road, it's crazy. But that's because it tugs at the emotional aspect. Yeah?
And I was going to say, that's a very interesting point about tugging at the emotional aspect that we have for whatever viability that we are seeking. Quick story. I once bought a car, and it was a sports car, and I found myself driving 160 miles an hour, I don't know what that is in kilometers, on a state road. And I was doing it just to feel the thrill. Yeah, really. I was doing it to feel the thrill of the car. And then I thought, logic kicked in, and I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to say if I'm stopped by a cop? I want to feel the thrill as he gave me a ticket and said, well, he'll feel this thrill, or something of that nature. But the point is, you do have to appeal to logic from time to time per the emotions that people are seeking, per any type of activity that you're truly involved in. Think about the person first and how you can serve him or her.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I've seen quite often in retail is they really, as you said, James, they've really made up their mind what they want. It is what you're offering them as an experience that could perhaps alter that or enhance their decision to upsell or to change their mind from going from since there's so much talk about Apple, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going from an Apple to an Android phone. I'm an Android user, right? So one of the elements about us as retailers trying to find out what is intrinsically the need or the problem that the buyer is trying to solve, the consumer is trying to solve. What is that need that you're trying to meet? And if we have the ability to predict that and to work and provide a full experience in terms of how we are uniquely positioned to provide that capability of service better than anyone else, that's a great way for us to stand out. What do you think? Yeah.
Exactly. First, you have to say your why. Why you do what you do before you actually sell what you do. Right? That's where it's going to help people remember you and come to you again and again. Right? Like, I'm sure everybody would have watched the most infamous Simon Sinek's TED talk, right? Like how he switched, taking an example of Apple's way of selling it. You first sell your why, the reason for existence, and then irrespective of what product you want to launch, people are just going to buy it. Right? Let's take a couple of quick examples on retail FMCG. It's easier for all of us to relate to. If Head & Shoulders is launching a soap brand, a soap product, will any of us even pick them up? It's like bits. It doesn't sit well in your mind, right? If they probably launch a face cream, no, it doesn't, right? Dove sells face cream. Dove sells soap. Dove sells shampoo. Dove sells everything that you would need from head to foot. People just go and lap it up. They don't have any problem in doing that with Dove, but they have a problem doing that with Head & Shoulders. That's because this brand is unfortunately pinned it down on one particular product. Like what I do. Like anti-dandruff, that's it, nothing else. But Dove went on a larger scale of the reason for existence and why I'm here to make every woman feel beautiful. Right? They sold the purpose of their existence first, and then they sold the product. So I think the key takeaway message for me is like, first sell your wine, for yourself what you do.
Absolutely. I'm just mindful of the clock over here. Notice that it kind of accelerated. So I'm sure the organizers are keen for us to get you to lunch. So I'd like to open up the floor to any questions, any thoughts, perspectives that we'd be happy to answer. Yes.
Well, thank you very much for the reflections, are very interesting. I, of course, cannot agree more about the concept of somehow the love mark you build with the brand, and when you fall in love with the brand, you will have this brand with you for all your life. So this is a clear concept. I know we're talking about retail, but for your experience and point of view, when we move from the product business to a competence, knowledge-based business, how we can facilitate, when we talk with our customers, so our clients, how we can facilitate the emotional channel, make them feel the emotional that we saw in the videos that you show us, let them remember us all their life.
Yep, go ahead. The question was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but how can we
Where
utilize
should they do that, right?
the aspect? Why don't you go ahead? Yeah.
Today, I think we are in what I see is in a third revolution of sales in business. Okay, the first revolution always hinged on product, rational selling, why this product is superior than the rest and all of that. And over a period of time, things kind of got caught up. Everybody had the same level of products and quality and everything else. Then the second revolution came, which is emotional, adding a layer of emotion. Why you have to kind of buy me, what will make you feel, right? This one, it's all about people's emotions and feeling. The third one is cost-based, right? Like why you exist, the purpose that the brands have taken. And if you ask me when brands should transit, I would say you have to do it on day one in today's environment. It doesn't need big bucks to do it, but you have to sell your story, your reason for existence, even in your own website and your social media. You don't need to go on television to announce a big bad budget on the purpose for your reason for existence, but do it on day one. Packaging is one of your biggest real estate asset. Communicate that, in that medium, your website, your social media. I would say the best time was yesterday, the next best time is today.
I think just to add to that, it's a very valid point. I mean, not just retail, but specifically speaking about retail and again about that buying behavior. If we can work towards identifying the intrinsic need of that buyer, of that person, and if we can offer ways by which we are able to solve or address those needs, the other aspects of the experience come together very naturally. But when we position ourselves as a way to uniquely address your need, whether you've articulated it or not, it makes it for a much stronger emotional connection because we're tugging at what you probably didn't fully realize you needed or wanted, but now because of the way we've addressed it or interacted with you or engaged with you, we've been able to elicit that out. Yeah?
Well, I'm not sure if I heard the question completely, but I'm going to come at this from a body language perspective. When people communicate with you, they emit additional values that they possess at that particular point in time from verbal, nonverbal, from a verbal and nonverbal perspective. So when you're listening to people speak, you can see what's going on in their mind also. Sometimes by the way they pause, sometimes by the way they get excited when they're talking about whatever it is that you've excited them about, what they might be able to obtain, etc., etc. Those are cues to pick up on such that you then know. If someone says, I really like that, as opposed to, oh, I really like that. And you pick up on those cues, and that gives you more insight into which direction to position your product and the direction in which to actually make your offer to them.
James, I think from your perspective, given your wide expertise and experience,
Yeah, even though I didn't hear the question very well.
perhaps you could share with the audience. And from what I understand, I believe your expertise would also address some of that questions. But from your perspective of multiple industries and multiple aspects of getting entrance into that particular space and then convincing the market with regards to why they should be investing in you and why they should be buying from you, what are your thoughts on that?
This is exactly what I said in the beginning. This is, you have to be better than a competitor. Just for sure. You have to do all the work before you enter the market that you have a different product. And also you have to offer something better than the competitor. And my point of view is that when you have a better product and you give better service to any potential customer, I think eventually, we see it happening, this switching, because brand loyalty in this particular era that actually we live in, people switching brands very easily. So in order to maintain that, you have to keep also, when they're switching to you, you have to keep all your employees, all your customers happy. And how you do that is consuming information, consuming content all the time to them, giving them the extra, features or whatever your services, and be consistent with the brand. That's very important.
Just being mindful of time, and again, we're happy to take this conversation further during lunch if you'd like that, yeah? But Anand, if I could ask you to quickly sum up from your perspective, thinking about the topic, selling in style, how to make your brand stand out, what would be one takeaway that you would want the rest of the audience to think about in terms of how can they stand out in retail?
Like I've already mentioned about this, first sell your wine before you sell what you're selling.
Okay, thank you. Great.
Remember, you're always negotiating. Even as you position your brand and the perspective that you wish to have it perceived as, you have to position it such that you negotiate from the point of view of the person with whom, or the entity with whom, you're actually trying to convince, influence, that they would be better off with your brand, your product, than your competitor.
James?
I would say in this kind of market is that not the big that eat the small, but the fast who eats the slow. And usually big corporations, they're pretty slow on decision making. So there is a lot of potential out there if you actually implement strategies correctly and you really want to succeed in retail. There is a lot of possibilities and opportunities right now.
I love that, fast, eat the slow. From my perspective, what would be the big takeaway in order for you to stand out? Well, I'm going to turn it to you. Indulge me if you will. Could you all please stand? I could just invite all of you to stand for a moment. And when on the count of 3, I want you to turn clockwise, one full circle. Right? Just keep turning. One full circle. No, just keep turning. And when I say stop, you're going to stop in your own revolution. Yeah? And then I want you to say, hey, to the person closest to you in your line of sight. All right? We ready? On a count of 3, turn clockwise, circle, right? And when I say stop, I have a count of 3. Ladies and gentlemen, come on. Not on the count of 3, right? And when I say stop, wherever you stop, you're gonna say hey or hi to the person closest to you in your line of sight, right? If it's across the room, go ahead and shout it out, all right? 1, 2, 3. Stop. All right. What is the takeaway from this little quick exercise? You want to stand out? Be outstanding. What we just did over here, none of the other 4 rooms are going to do. So you are going to be unique. You're the ones that are just going to rock the way you're going to do that. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good day.
Who said they wanted a copy of this? Now you see, that's how you make your brand stand out. You gotta come and get it. This was spoken for already. It's already spoken.